Bonjour and bienvenue. Je m'appelle Ryan Mckern. Merci beaucoup for welcoming and listening to the Wicked Webs We Weave podcast. And I am your host, Ryan Mckern. Thank you all for watching the video. Please leave a like and subscribe, as I have new uploads weekly. Tonight we visit a special place in my heart, the Paris Catacombs in France. A giant labyrinth of graves, art, and mystery that spans underneath the streets of Paris. The both legal and illegal areas are some of the most fascinating places I've ever seen in my life. A place I hopefully like to call my resting home in the future. Maybe you'll see my bones on display one day. So sit back and dwell in the proverbial darkness, my friends. Mon ami, très bien. Dim the lights. Cozy up to your favorite graveyard. And enjoy the wicked webs we weave. We bring you to the middle of the 18th century Paris. Paris may have been one of the largest and most prosperous city in the Western world, but by its own rapid growth was causing the city cemeteries to literally overflow with the bodies of the dead. The reek of decomposing flesh attained epidemic proportions in certain areas of the city, including, most thoroughly and troubling, the area around the main food market of the Halles. With public health at risk, something had to be done. But few expected that the solution would create one of the most singular and spooky tourist attractions in the world. It was an incredible feat of architectural do, marketing genius, and downright hard. With public health at risk, something had to be done. But few expected that the solution would create one of the most singular and spooky tourist attractions in the world. It was an incredible feat of architectural daring. One of the most progressive cities in Europe. It's a story of progress, foresight, and a bit of macabre interior design. It's a story of the Paris Catacombs. The Cemetery of Innocents, the largest and most important within Paris city limits, contained some 2 million bodies. Once you included the rest of the city's cemeteries, the count came to roughly 6 million sets of remains that needed to be disordered and disinterred and reburied somewhere else within the greater public good. Given the religious nature of the original burials, they could not simply be dug up and thrown around. They would have to be reburied with some form of ritual in one of the largest transmissions of human remains in history. Fortunately, for the nascent Paris Catacombs project, the city sat above nearly 200 miles of limestone tunnels that had been carved out to provide the very stones from which the city was built. The tunnels were so extensive that by the 19th century, the weight of the city above was creating giant sinkholes into which entire buildings and blocks were collapsing. In 1777, the king's architect Charles-Axel Gallion was given the unnervable task of stabilizing the entire system of subterranean mine shafts in order to literally save the city from collapse. Then, despite the size of the challenge, Guillemot pulled it off without much effort at all. By 1785, the tunnels were stable, and the remains of the dead Parisians were being dug up every night, transferred into them. A priest accompanied every wagonload of remains in order to chant the Catholic Office of the Dead prayer, cycle to ensure that the remains remained at peace. It took 2 years of nightly work to empty the majority of Paris cemeteries and relocate the cemetery's remains in the catacombs, but the transfer of bones continued up until 1859, above ground. Public works were on hold for a few years, while France had a revolution, executed a lot of people, and then slowly started to rebuild. When Napoleon marched to power on the back of the revolution, he inherited a medieval city that was once the throes of the rapid modernization. One of the little emperor's key beliefs was that the men are only great through monuments they leave behind them. In this vein, he punctuated his reign with a number of grandiose public works and pieces of art, like Jacques-Louis David Gomer's Contier Napoleon, many of which helped to give rise to the concept of the Napoleon complex. Given the Bourne and that Rome, which was considered the preeminent monument to the city in Europe, already had so much valued system in the catacombs that intrepid tourists could visit, Napoleon decided that France needed something similar. He commissioned his prefect of Serene, Nicolas Frachut, and the inspector general of quarries, Louis Etienne Herish de Thray, to turn the quarry tunnels from a labyrinth channel house into something that people would want to go down and see, thus giving the rise to the original Paris Catacomb tours. The bone decorations were created specifically to attract tourists, and they were very successful. When quarrymen, under the direction of Héricat de Thry, began arranging the transferred bones into ossuary decorations, they had their work cut out for them. Despite the ritual with which they were transferred, the bones had simply been dumped into the tunnels in large heaps. Slowly but surely, the quarrymen lined the walls with tibias and femurs, punctuated with the skulls, which form the basis of most of the decorations that tourists see today, both out of whimsy and to convey deeper religious messages about death. They also arranged bones in various shapes like hearts, circles, and death heads. They erected signs which served as commemorative plaques and carved arrows into the ceilings so the first people visiting on Catacombs tour, who were seeing everything by eerie flicker candlelight, would not lose their way. This didn't stop a group of 25 English tourists from getting lost in 1903. They all got out safely, though, eventually. Though these changes, and through them all, in a clever marketing brochure published by Héricat de Thry in 1810, the Paris Catacombs soon gained a reputation as one of the most affecting and surely the most macabre place to visit in the city. Occasionally, the Paris Catacombs host parties, not legal ones, mind you. The persistent rumor that the Comte d'Artis, who later ruled France briefly as Charles X, used to hold candlelight parties in the catacombs, although it's hard to verify the truth of the claim. On April 2nd, 1897, a group of amateur musicians staged an impromptu and highly illegal concert in the catacombs late at night for about 100 people. As recent as 2012, many punk rock festivals, underground raves have happened into the catacombs as well. The program included Chopin's Funeral March and Cabell Saint-Saëns' Dance Macabre. One problem caused the influx of visitors, both legal and illegal, was that the skulls began to mysteriously vanish from their alcoves. Initially, quarry workers replaced them with new skulls, but they eventually stopped. Today, every time you see a gap in a line of skulls, just remember that someone probably took that one home as a souvenir. It's not just bones decorating the Paris catacombs. In order to entice more visitors, various exhibitions were installed in the catacombs. These included a room showcasing skeletons and various deformities, as well as a room displaying the types of minerals that were found when the tunnels were being excavated, neither of which you can see anymore. Goldfish were brought and dropped into a little pool called the Samaritan Fountain. Although the fountain, which collects groundwater, is still a feature of the catacombs, the fish are long dead. The most enduring of the Paris Catacombs exhibits is a highly series of stone carvings created by a slightly mysterious figure called Decour. He was a veteran of the French army and spent some time in Minocqua when the French exiled the island from the British. When not helping his fellow quarrymen stabilize the tunnels, he carved faithful renderings of the citadel of Mahon, as well as other important buildings from the island. They are incongruous, unexpected, and not really connected to anything, but fascinating nonetheless. Decour was killed in a rockfall while working in the catacombs. No word on where he was buried. Although the 200 miles of catacombs is illegal to adventure through. You can see an old room that used to be carved out of stone benches. Stone benches lay in the room as it was used as a movie theater for catacomb dwellers. A small garden can also be found somewhere within the foyer, and many graffiti and paintings, as well as a tunnel full of femur bones that you have to crawl in to get through, and various skull and other bone statues and monuments made. The catacombs truly are a unique and wonderful place, one that I would be proud to call my home. I'll see you soon, Paris Catacombs. Thank you for joining me once again, my friends in the darkness, for this part one of a two-part series on the Paris Catacombs. I'd like to thank walkofitaly.com, thetourguide.com, and links to YouTube videos can be found in the description of this video. Please stay tuned again for part two coming very shortly that focuses on the ghost stories, urban legends of some of the accounts within the Paris Catacombs. And who knows, maybe this will be a 4-part series or more. There's so much lore and mystery and awe that I have for the Paris Catacombs. Cannot express enough how much I love this place and could spend literally months and years roaming around within its walls and grave. Until we meet again, mon ami, au revoir.